This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
One of the things that obviously I need to address is Jay Glazer. Now, I don't really put a lot of stock on a lot of the reports that have been going on because, look, man, leading up to the draft last year, not this past season, the draft before, there were reports that what's it called? That Chris Greer liked Justin Herbert. And now there are reports that Flores wanted Justin Herbert. You know what I mean? So I have a hard time putting any kind of stock in any of this. And by the way, people were freaking out a year and a half ago when he was liking Justin Herbert because Herbert had that reputation that was going around as a loner, as an introvert, all that stuff. And since you had your introvert already in Ryan Tannehill, they didn't want to go through it again. And so people were up at, I mean, I was getting, oh my God, I can't believe he likes Justin Herbert, which it was just a report, which we didn't even know if it was true or not. Just like this one, we don't know if it was true or not. We don't know any of these reports if they're true or not. Okay. But Jay Glazer is a guy that he's to me in football, almost everybody else can get stuff wrong. And people have gotten it wrong. Jay Glazer does not get stuff wrong. He's like the Woj of basketball and football. You know, he's Woj in football and Woj is Woj in basketball. When these guys put out a report, it's money in the bank. And so now he puts out a report that Houston could be softening up their stance on Deshaun Watson. Now, I put all the stock in his report that Houston is softening their stance. If Jay Glazer throws it out there, he's the one guy I don't question. Now, what I will question is, and I've told you this before, I still don't believe the NFL will allow any deal to take place until legal issues are done. They just haven't had to say anything because nothing's happened. And Houston put them on ice. So I want to see how the NFL responds if this report is true by Jay Glazer, which I believe it's true. And if it's true, and then we find out what teams are involved, and if Miami is involved in all these negotiations, I still feel nothing will happen this season. I still think that unless you have legal issues solved before the trading deadline, there is no way anything can happen. Because the NFL, I doubt. Now, the NFL at times has been ignorant in this area, and they have allowed themselves to look terrible in these situations. So whether it's Miami or Philadelphia or any other team that's involved in these kind of negotiations, and I got to tell you, I am not comfortable about all of this because I worry about bringing Deshaun Watson to your team, because you got to remember, if he ends up getting away with it and he did something wrong, all that does is empower these kind of people. All right? Because that's why Harvey Weinstein was probably doing it for decades, because nobody ever found out. No women ever came forward. It continued to empower him. He controlled these people's careers. And if they didn't do this or that, they weren't going to get that part or that whatever, in the future. And so that's what happens to these kind of animals. Okay? Whether it's Cuomo or Clinton or Trump or whatever, any of these kind of people that abuse others and take advantage of their power, the more they get away with it, the more you empower them. And I don't know if he got away with something. I don't know if he didn't do anything. I don't know if it was consensual. I don't know if it was against their own will. I'm not exactly sure. And, people that are abused, you never really get the whole story a lot of times, because They're afraid to come forward. They don't want to relive it, especially in public. They already were embarrassed as it is. They don't need to go through it again. You know what I mean? So it's a really difficult situation. So it makes me uncomfortable that you're actually trading for this guy who clearly has problems. Whoever it is, it bothers me that the league would even allow something like this to be, if it's happening. Now, nothing's happening. The only thing reported is that Jay Glazer says they're softening their stance. So they might be willing to listen. Now, remember, this might be something that they want to start laying the groundwork for next year also. It may not be something for this year. It might be something that you're now starting to open up the negotiations to do it next year once the legal issues are done. Maybe that's what Houston is doing. We don't know. And as long as Tua is dealing with injuries, as long as Tua is not performing at the level that people are expecting him to perform, considering he was the 5th pick in the draft, this is going to persist. Whether it's true or not, whether Miami is in on it or not, this is going to persist. And once we're done with the Watson talk, it'll then become the Aaron Rodgers talk. Let's not kid ourselves. So this is all up to Tua now, and what they can do in the front, in the offensive line and everything else. That's the only way this stuff is going to quiet down, because you have a certain section of Dolphin fans that don't want Tua already as it is, that don't believe in Tua already. So they want to move on to the next person, whether it's Watson or Aaron Rodgers. They're already frustrated. They see Justin Herbert putting up stats. They're already sold that Herbert is the guy and that Tua was the failure. You've already got one columnist in town that already wrote the story that the Dolphins have picked the wrong quarterback. And just like Dave Hyde, many others feel the same way. So while this is all going on, that fuels this story. And the sad part about it is it takes away from what's going on the field. And right now it's not good because they're 1-2. But you win this week, and then you split the next 2 games, and you're 3-3, and you get Tua back, and you start to play well, maybe you'll quiet all this stuff down. But that's what it's going to take. And for Tua himself, this is part of the process now. You were taken high in the draft. There's a lot expected of you. If you don't live up to it, and I know that there's a portion of Dolphins, oh my God, we're going to end up trading for Watson. He'll end up in jail or in trouble, and Tua will go somewhere else and thrive because he ends up on a team that has an offensive line and a running game, and all of a sudden he can play his game because he's got the pieces that he needs that he didn't have in Miami. So the Dolphin is a battered person. They feel like everything is not going to go their way. That's the Dolphin right now. The Dolphin feels like, well, if we draft Tua, that'll fail. And if we trade for Watson, that'll fail too. And if we trade for Aaron Rodgers, he'll get all of a sudden really old on us. And then that'll fail also, because this is what's been happening to us for many, many years now, for decades now. And we have that Dolphin that thinks everything is going to go negative. And it's sad. And I get it, because you've been beaten down the last 20 plus years. You haven't won jack shit for nearly 50 years now. I totally understand what the hell is going on in the Dolphin Nation. But there are all these factors that we can't control. We can't control the offensive line. We can't control rumors about Watson. We can't control Tua's injury history or his play. We can't control if it's really too late to trade for Aaron Rodgers at this point. Are you going to give up too much for an older player? Are you going to give up too much to actually help Watson win? Because you're going to have to give up so much in return. And then are you really trading for somebody that still has legal issues and you don't know the end result of those legal issues? Or are you trading for someone after everything's been decided and then you've got to worry about future problems with this player? Because you have to have anyone that trades for Watson, Miami, Philadelphia, you name it, whoever trades for Watson has to have a really uncomfortable conversation with him and talk about his issues and say, hey, you know, do you understand what you did? I don't care if you were found innocent. Do you understand how stupid it was what you did? And then you got to find out if this guy really realizes how stupid he's been. And if he's not, and he's ignorant about it, and he's defiant about it, how do you handle all of that? There's a lot of layers to this story. There's a lot of factors in this story. It's like this big pot it's like this big seafood gumbo pot that's got all kinds of things inside of it in order to make it what it is. And man, there's a lot of things affecting this. There's a lot of things to weigh. There's a lot of risks everywhere. Risk at age with Aaron Rodgers, risk at behavior with Deshaun Watson, risk at injury history with Tua. There's risk everywhere. Whatever direction, Miami's a fork in the road. Do they stay with their course? Do they divert and go somewhere else and go in the direction of Deshaun Watson, proven and still young? Do they go with Aaron Rodgers and say, okay, well, we're close enough on defense that if we add Aaron Rodgers, we have enough to get over the hump and get to a Super Bowl? But we've only got a short window with Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers, by the way, it's not like he isn't flaky either. Maybe not to the stupid extreme of Deshaun Watson. Maybe not to the injury history extreme of Tua, but it's still there's still risk there. So I don't know where this situation goes. Personally, for me, I'm hoping that Tua just gets healthy. I'm hoping that this offensive line improves and plays to the level that can give him some time to play the game and prove that he's worthy of the pick, and you don't need to move, and you can continue to build this thing, and that you're headed in the right direction. Because right now, because of the adversity and the speed bumps you've hit right now, it's completely changed the vision for a lot of fans out there. Because there's a lot of you out there that are convinced they're not headed in the right direction.
This is the Big O Show.